we don't really know how this structure will fare in another major earthquake.
Can Seattle survive the next big earthquake? Find out on this edition of Northwest Aspect.
Hello and welcome to Northwest Aspect. I'm your host, Aaron Shanks. On February 28, 2001, Seattle area residents were jolted out of their daily routine. An earthquake struck the Pacific Northwest at 10:54 a.m. It had a magnitude of 6.8 on the Richter scale and was centered 35 miles south-southwest of Seattle, Washington.
It was like, the world is ending, you know? I mean, I just thought it was it. Because everyone tells you that, the big quake, so.
Geologists study seismic events in an attempt to explain how and why the Earth moves when it does. The shaking that startles the rest of us provides data for scientists to analyze. We spoke with Anthony Kumar, state seismologist with the geophysics program at the University of Washington Seismology Center, to find out more about the geology of our region.
One of the difficulties we have in the Pacific Northwest in studying earthquakes is the fact that the faults that produce these earthquakes are fairly deep, generally deeper than they are in, say, California. Here in the Pacific Northwest, and that includes Northern California, Oregon, Washington, and southern British Columbia, we have a different situation. We have two plates converging toward one another. We call that plate the Juan de Fuca plate. It actually dives beneath North America and reaches depths of 100 kilometers, or that's about 60 miles or more. So we have, unlike California, we have deep earthquakes extending from the surface all the way down to about 60 miles below the surface.
The closer to the surface an earthquake occurs, the more likely it will be to cause damage to buildings, roads, and bridges. In Seattle, the majority of damage from the Nisqually quake was in the older downtown section of the city. Older buildings were damaged more severely because they were built during a time when earthquake codes were less sophisticated than they are now. In Long Beach, California, in 1933, a major earthquake sent brick buildings tumbling to the ground. Building engineers discovered that every building that fell lacked reinforcement within its walls. As a result, the National Building Code was revised, changing forever how we make buildings.
One of the major pieces of damage we had in downtown Seattle was on a pier on the Alaskan Way Viaduct, which is where we're standing right now. It's a structure that was built in the mid-50s and it was not built to current earthquake codes. So we knew it was a seismically vulnerable structure to begin with, and of course it was a priority concern for us right after the earthquake. So we immediately began a repair. The viaduct, if you can imagine this, is a lot of small bridges set front to back. So it's a lot of individual bridge sections that are side by side. You get to a structure like the viaduct, it was built in the mid-50s and it was not built to current codes. So we don't really know how this structure will fare in another major earthquake.
An earthquake can strike at any time, so it's comforting to know that there are many dedicated and well-trained professionals who respond in times of emergency. Michael Fearnehough, one of Northwest Aspect's producers and a former rescue worker, went to find out more about these life-saving teams.
Earthquakes can make entire buildings collapse. That's what brings us here to the Seattle Fire Department's Urban Search and Rescue Training Center.
Search and Rescue Team, which is a multi-jurisdictional search and rescue team, the same teams that were involved in Oklahoma City and other disasters around the United States. But our main objective is to go and save lives and get people out of typically earthquake scenarios. We carry search cameras, which are fiber optic cameras that we're allowed to drill into concrete and look into spaces that we normally can't look into and see if there's victims inside. We carry breaching equipment, basically, equipment to blast through concrete. And for example, we carry torches. That's an exothermic torch. It burns at 6,000 degrees and we can cut through metal pretty quickly. We had a warehouse fire down there where a lot of people that were there were people that were off shift that staffed additional apparatus that we carry in the city for such events. In earthquakes, it's difficult. You need to triage buildings and also people that are potentially trapped. So for example, maybe a school that's collapsed that has 300 children trapped, that has a very high priority other than a building with 1 or 2 people trapped. We're going to focus our resources on the greatest amount for the greatest good of people.